Okay, so quick confession, I have never played a Mountain Blade game before. Multiple are in my Steam library. I likely bought them during a sale some years ago and just forgot. That scenario is not limited to a single game, and I know I'm not alone in this. Seriously, I think I'm getting a good deal during the summer or winter sale, but then my unplayed games list just ends up in the 3 digits. Anyway, Feudalism 1. Another confession here. 8-year-old me was not good enough at this game to even conquer one city. I think the main reason was that I never read any of the text and didn't hire anybody from my army, so I tried to solo everything. You can't really do that in the early game. 4 factions to choose from: a vaguely Celtic/Nordic forest people that prefer axes/throwing axes, a vaguely Roman trading empire that prefers swords/crossbows, a vaguely Crusader-ish Holy Roman Empire type people that likes maces and throwing weapons, and just straight up Japan. They really like their own weapon type, which is categorized into its own separate thing. You are going to be ignoring most of the stats. I remember trying to make a balanced character. That was a mistake. We min-max here. As a melee axe guy, ignore all the other weapon stats. These stats only increase weapon hit rate anyway. Art of War increases the power of your troops, and Patriotism increases the power of your troops from the same country as you. You will need to invest in these 2 stats in the late game. The 4 personal stats at the top of the list mostly just scale you up. Strength increases the damage of axes/swords, Dex increases the damage of Far East weapons, most ranged weapons, and increases your chance to dodge. Constitution increases the damage of maces, is required for most armors, and increases your health. Intelligence makes your troops stronger and gatekeeps the Art of War/Patriotism stats. You start out in the weakest city in your nation. All cities have a forge to buy and sell stuff in, a stable to buy horses, a church to buy healing items, and a city hall to get quests, save your game, or just conquer the place. There is also a barracks where you can hire troops, but you need to have already conquered the city to use it. Coastline towns have docks where you can rent a boat. They are fairly expensive for the early game, and you have to pay each time. The game starts off slowly. The main thing to do early is grinding gold and EXP by fighting some bandits until you are adequately kitted out. The quests don't actually give that much money. Most of your income is going to be from selling the equipment of the people you beat, and when you beat a group of people, you get everything they were carrying. This will also make you wish this game had a sell all button. The troops of the stronger cities are locked behind conquering them, but their weapons and horses aren't. Horses give a lot of stats for their relative cheapness, and none of them are stats gated. It takes quite a while to get strong enough to conquer a city, because even the weakest city of each nation has better troops than what you started out with. You either need to be in near endgame gear or have an insane amount of troops in your reserves. Your reserve is seemingly infinite. You can only ever have 10 allied soldiers on the field at once, but if your troops get got, they are quickly replaced by the next person in line from the reserve. I'm glad supply lines aren't considered here. I tried attacking a city prematurely and got wrecked for it. Then when I tried to load the game, the fight just continued on the town screen. I had to close the game and reopen every time. I would normally say this is a bad thing, but this type of jank in this type of game actually makes me feel kinda nostalgic. This and the fact that you can finish a random bandit encounter to get a different random bandit encounter 0.01 seconds later makes me remember a time when I didn't know what the word anxiety meant, and $50 could actually get you a decent haul from the grocery store. Once you become strong enough to conquer your first city, things just kinda snowball. Your gear is likely already maxed out, and you get better troops with each conquest. Healing scrolls are broken. The potions only heal you, but the scrolls heals everyone a percentage of their max health, and with how much money you get, they practically cost nothing. You don't really fight that much in the late game. Your soldiers take care of your enemies, and you just sit back and click the heal scroll if they get injured. The thing is, I can't really get to the front line in time anyway. I chose the horse that's slow but has a lot of health, so while everyone else just zooms to the opponent, I'm just here like,
stop it! Cut it out!
I was so weak in the beginning, but after a certain point, my power levels just snowballed so fast. I felt like it was kind of an accident. You slowly bide your time and grow stronger bit by bit before entering the big stages and getting to fight with cities. Even with the sudden snowball into world domination, Feudalism 1 has a good sense of progress to it. This game has that jank and simplicity present in most games from the early Flash era, some of which is improved upon in Feudalism 2. A bunch of new stuff and a bit of the polishing of the corners. 2 new factions, a vaguely Arabic desert people that likes getting crits and dual wielding weapons. Plus, straight up just the Mongols. They like bows and being on horseback. Every commander now also has a set of active and passive skills. Active skills relate to weapon type. Shoot 2 times with a bow. Shoot 3 times with a bow. Passive skills increase the stats of certain unit types, increase the defense of people with a sword and shield, or increase the attack of mounted units. Aura skills are their own thing, most of which do some healing at the cost of draining mana per second. Mana is here now. The intelligence, art of war, and patriotism stats are gone now, and have been replaced by the spirit stat, which only really affects your mana pool. Many of the later game units have 1 or 2 abilities that they spam. Late game troops pretty much never do a regular attack. The map has been noticeably improved. The borders between the nations are much more clearly defined now. You can now buy a ship instead of just renting, which makes much more sense and means that they somehow managed to get rid of the boat landlords in the first game. The overpowered healing scrolls has been discontinued, it's just potions now. The Forge doesn't sell you weapons anymore, that role has been taken over by the new marketplace. The Forge now lets you enchant and upgrade weapons. Upgrading by itself is very cheap, but it's luck based, with a chance to just destroy your weapons on failure. The initial max seems like it would be plus 10, but you can go further than that. I just don't want to risk it. Runes are a new thing. In the first game, you had a chance to get an enchanted piece of equipment with an additional effect. I didn't use them much as they were often just on low level gear. This time around, you can just enchant stuff yourself. There has been some attempts at rebalancing the game. Your reserve is no longer infinite. You now have a max of 50 soldiers. So does your opponents. This actually makes some of the fights longer, as even the largest armies in Feudalism 1 didn't have 50 guys to fight. Now, this is the default for big cities. Auras are far too powerful, and the spirit stat is their only limiting factor. The balance aura heals your units for a percent of their max health per second, and deals true damage equal to a percentage of the enemy's max health per second as well. That is so strong, what the hell? Money seems completely out of whack here. You start out with an insane amount and you snowball a lot sooner. You still get most of your money from selling gear. Thankfully, there is a sell all button now. Horses are more expensive, but with the increase in the money flow, the only real moment where you actually need money is when you're mass buying the best equipment of your type trying to hit the plus 10 upgrade. The game is a bit less glitchy than before. Even outside of the glitches, the jank is still very much present. The old-ish charm is standing beside the jank and making it look presentable. It's a good sequel. They knew that they had something with the first game and didn't change any of the stuff that worked. They added some stuff around it and tweaked some of the numbers to make it feel a bit different, but not that different. You could argue that this game is more of an expansion pack than a sequel, which is something I don't really mind, but maybe that's what got into the dev's head, and that's why we got something so noticeably different in Feudalism 3. You can barely tell this is related to the first 2 games. It looks like an off-brand knockoff of itself. They have completely backed away from the kind of historical stuff and decided to go on fantasy with guns. We have the magic-based kingdom, the snowy hammer kingdom, the fiery gun kingdom, the desert poison kingdom, and Japan again. The tutorial is you fending off all of your nation's cities from a different empire. You start the game just fighting towns. Random bandit encounters are no longer a thing. You can still grind by hunting monsters on the world map, which honestly is a better system and is the one improvement this game has. Oh, and there's actually music now. The last 2 games didn't have that. It's not that good, but it's better than nothing. A lot more abilities, and it's kind of set up like an MMO. Your character is solidly the strongest fighter in your army. Feudalism 1 and 2 had you as a field commander. You didn't fight that much. In the third entry, your soldiers just suck and you have to take on most of the enemy army by yourself. The battles are way slower now. Fights between units used to end in seconds. It feels like everybody's defensive stats have been tripled and everybody's offensive stats has been divided by 4. Some units have incredibly stupid designs. I have been stun locked here for over a minute and I'm still not sure who's doing that. There is a reason why a lot of games have stun lock protection. Why is the reviver a thing? Every late game city has a battalion of mages that just revive their allies and do nothing else. This extends each fight so much. They can revive other revivers and seem to never run out of mana, which means you need to take them out as a group, which your troops can't really do well, so it's entirely up to you. So much of the times where I end up alone against the entirety of the enemy army is due to these revivers just pulling everybody back from the dead while my soldiers are still planted face first into the ground. You would think I would have my own revivers, but I beat the game before I hit the level requirements to be able to use them. Nothing is locked behind stats or cities anymore. Everything is behind a level barrier now. I conquered every other city and only got within like 3 levels before the requirement, and that's on top of all the monster hunting. Even with all that dumbness, this game is still easy, just really tedious. You don't have a weak phase anymore. Income is still as fast as ever, and if you didn't know about the revivers, you might have been caught off guard, but that only happens once. The game is almost unrecognizable. The town names feel so out of place. The name used to change color to tell you that it's yours. That doesn't happen anymore. Why was this removed? The barracks, market, city hall, forge, and church have all been replaced by 4 wooden stalls in each city. Stables aren't even a thing anymore because they removed horses. The game's new themes of magic and guns really messily done and don't really matter at all. I guess there's a wizard gun quest that's barely worth mentioning. The conquering of cities gameplay baseline is still there, it just made everything surrounding it worse. The jank of the old games is still alive and stronger than ever, but the charm that used to make up for it has been yamcha'd. Well, that's it. Play the first 2 games. You can really tell that they're old, but they're still pretty fun once you get into it. I didn't like the third game, but if you have the time, you could still try it to at least see the differences it has. Couldn't find much about the dev. Vitally Z's main legacy for Flash lies in the Feudalism games and the Endless War series. After that, they seem to have mostly vanished. He made some games and then left to do whatever. I can respect that. Okay, so like next is ninjas, then zombies.